All right, guys, I want to talk to you today about setting up a small still life for our pen drawing. And what I want you to do is choose objects that are personal to you in some way. You also want them to be objects that you would like to draw, that you're interested in drawing. Maybe they have an interesting surface texture, or it's an object that has an interesting form that you like, but you're going to be committed to the objects that you choose. You're going to be committed to drawing those objects. So make sure that you have an interest in drawing the things that you choose. But I also want you to choose things that are personal and tell me something about you. So it's almost like a faceless self-portrait. Assemble some objects that just reflect your personal interests. So for me, just to give you an example, I am an artist, and I also am a teacher, and I really love nature. So I grabbed some things here that I could put into my personal still life that would tell a little bit about me, about myself. You can go in different directions with that, okay? You could gather objects that are all similar. So if I wanted to just portray the artist part of me, I could gather all art supplies, all art objects that are related to that part of myself, all right, that me being an artist. So they could all relate, or some of the things I assembled show different aspects of things that I like. So they can all relate, or they don't have to all relate, but I want it to be some sort of a reflection of you. You can also try and tell a story with the objects that you assemble, like create some kind of a narrative, show evidence of something. So however you want to play this, I want you to be thoughtful about the objects that you choose. When you're ready to set up and start making some still lives, and I say some because I want you to try some different combinations before you settle on the setup that you choose. All right, so try some different combinations of things, but before you do that, you need to get a piece of 9x9 paper. Okay, so this is just a piece of paper that I cut down to 9x9 square and place it down, and you're going to assemble your objects on this piece of paper. Now you might be thinking, well, I have a bunch of objects here, and that's a pretty small piece of paper, right? It's okay if you're assembling and things go off the edges of the paper. That's going to happen with me. You'll see that here. But we're going to be doing a 9x9 drawing, and it's going to set us up to be easier if you actually set up your still life on the 9x9 piece of paper. And then what we're going to do in the end, I'll show you in the video, is crop down right down to the edges of the paper after you take your picture so that your reference photo is square. Okay, so that's why we're doing this. You'll see by the end, it'll make a little bit more sense once I walk you through the next few steps. All right, so I'm going to begin setting up some of my objects here. One thing you want to keep in mind is it's good to have objects of different scale, different size. So some bigger objects and some smaller objects. You don't want to just collect a bunch of little tiny objects and just put them all around the page like polka dots, right? You want to create a flow to your composition. You want to create some leading lines. So some of the objects that I chose are like sort of longer and can spread across the whole composition, while other objects are smaller. And you want to think about grouping, right? So right now what you're doing is you're creating your composition. So you need to think about things like spacing and negative space, positive space, and all that good stuff. That's going to be a little bit easier to see once you actually start snapping pictures. Once light and shadow comes into play, all of that stuff should become more apparent and come together. For now, just try to arrange things in a way that you find pleasing, and then you can adjust as you snap pictures and you start to see the composition as a whole. So one of the things I said about me is that I love nature. Over the summer, I went on a lot of hikes and I collected a lot of objects. So One thing I did think about is just doing my whole still life all about that, right? I really love to render natural objects as well. They have interesting textures and forms. So that's one route I could go. But just for the sake of this example, I'm going to have this still life encompass multiple aspects of me and my life, all right? So I've got my natural object here. Notice how it's way bigger than the 9x9 piece of paper, but that's okay. I'm just gonna make sure that the most interesting parts fall within the white of the paper, within the white square. All right, so just sort of position accordingly. I also have my school lanyard, which I thought would make a good object because I can use it to sort of like guide the viewer's eye throughout the composition. It's kind of fluid. I think it'll bring the viewer's eye around the piece. So I chose it because it does reflect the fact that I am a teacher. But it also, whoops, just technical difficulty there. But it also is a nice object to help with my composition. So you want to be thinking about both aspects. You don't want to gather objects that are like personal to you, but you have no desire to draw, or they kind of make for a lousy composition. You want to be thinking about all facets of this. And then of course the artist part, I got some brushes that I thought would be fun to render because they're all like painted up. So I can place those wherever I think they'd be good for now. And then the other thing that you want to think about is lighting. So if we were in the classroom, we would all have these fancy table lamps, right? And I kind of have everything. Wow, you can't see that at all. All right, so I have this table lamp here, okay, that I can clip onto the table, and I can get some dramatic light and shadow. We'd be using that in class. If I were at home doing this, I'd be in a similar situation that you would be in. I have a little desk lamp that, it's not like a table lamp, it's a desk lamp that has like a movable shade to it, you know, like on an arm, and I could move it around and adjust the light with that. So if you have access to a desk lamp, that's probably like the best case scenario. You can light your still life with that. If all you have access to is a table lamp, you can bring this up close to a table lamp and try to get some dramatic light and shadow using that. So use what you have, but obviously something that you can adjust and hold up close or move farther back will be a better solution for lighting your still life. So I'm gonna go knock the lights, so it's a little dark in this room. If I wanted it to be more dramatic, I could shut the blinds because I do have some natural light coming in here. But let's just see what happens when I actually turn this lamp on now. I want to make sure this is straight, or as straight as this contraption will allow. Put some light on there. And notice the difference already. Okay, so anytime you have dramatic light and shadow, it's going to change your composition because the shadows are going to become a component. So I want you to play around with light and snap a few pictures with light from different angles. Notice how my camera is at a bird's eye view, so it's directly above my still life. So you might need somebody to help you with this. Like you might need somebody to hold the lamp at a certain angle while you snap a picture at a bird's eye view. I happen to have this like handy arm thing that I can put my phone into in order to make videos. If you have something like that, of course you can use it. You probably don't though, so maybe get someone to help you if you need extra hands to do this. But take a bunch of pictures with the light at different angles, because as you can see, as I hold the light at different angles, it changes the composition. It changes the light and shadow. That's actually kind of interesting, that shadow that's being cast like over near the lanyard. Right, so just do something that's going to be interesting. Change lighting, snap a picture. Change or rearrange some objects, snap a picture. And take several pictures. And then what you can do is go in and crop and see which composition you like the best. I notice in this composition already, I really don't like the way this pine cone falls like smack dab in the middle like a bullseye. To me, I think that that's bad composition. So what I might do before I take more pictures is move it over You know, maybe adjust the brushes so that they fill the space more, maybe stagger them more so that they feel more natural. All right, so play around with your setup. Move things around as you're snapping pictures and you realize, oh, the composition would be stronger if I move this over a smidge. So really be thinking about placement and all that good stuff that you know about composition. You can try different setups. Right, as I said, like what I could do now is dismantle this. I could try to do one with just natural items. Dismantle that. After I take a few pictures with some different lighting, grab some art supplies and make just an art one, and just try different combinations of things. So you are having like a straight up photo shoot here. Mess around with different objects, mess around with different lighting, take several pictures so that when you have to ultimately choose your favorite composition, you have plenty to choose from, and you can select your favorite one in the end, one that you're going to be committed to drawing in the end. So the final step is, once you take a variety of pictures, select your favorite, what you think is going to be your favorite composition. When you're taking your pictures, if you notice, mentioned this before, but my camera is at a bird's eye view. And if you look at the edges of the square piece of paper, they are pretty much parallel with the edges of my phone screen. And that's what you want to go for when you're taking your pictures. Now, if you want to go a little bit more of an angle, like angle down a bit, notice how the edges, these two edges become not parallel. That can work okay too, but the easiest way to do it is to do directly above bird's eye view and get your phone screen parallel with the edges of the square piece of paper as much as you can, and then snap your picture. Once you've snapped your picture, and you might do this with a few different compositions so you can really see the composition. I want you to use the crop tool on your phone is the best thing to do because it's immediate. You can just do it right away. Once you crop it, you can be like, I don't really love that composition, go to the next one, and crop down the next one. But when you crop, I want you to crop right down to the edges of the white paper. Now that's going to exclude some things, right? These sticks, part of the lanyard, part of the paintbrushes are going to be cropped out, and it's going to look like the objects are breaking the edges of the composition. Well, we know from Art 1 that a lot of times successful compositions do that, right? They zoom in and objects break the edges of the composition. So that's going to happen here for sure. Maybe on all four sides, maybe the way you arrange things, just on a couple sides. But you'll crop in and you'll lose that other stuff. Anything that's against the table here in this photo won't be in the composition. That's how I want you to submit your photo up to Classroom for me to review, is all lit the way you want it, arranged the way you want it, and cropped down to the edges of the white paper so that it is a perfectly square photo.